After hearing that some journalists in the industry were not interested in playing the same video games they're supposed to critique in the first place, it really got me thinking, why play the game at all? I mean, I've seen enough reviews, dabbled enough in most game genres, and more importantly, recognized the 20 phrases that are parroted in every single review everywhere ever. I'm more than up to the task, right? So join me in this neat thought experiment tonight as I review Bravely Default 2 in its entirety, without so much as touching the game. Let me lay down some rules first. I'm not allowed to look up any additional information on the game, and I can only use what I've seen in the trailers and my knowledge of the first couple of games way back when. So without further ado, let's begin my completely fake Bravely Default 2 review. Bravely Default 2 kicks off on the island of Farland, a country that is having a civil war over whether or not to rely on the elemental crystal's power. You play as Genric, a mercenary who abandoned his organization after his captain destroyed a fleet of innocent rebel soldiers. A lot of the story will involve you confronting your former team members and defeating them to gain their asterisks. Asterisks being magical gems that grant you new jobs for your characters. Also, you tell them they don't have the power of friendship or something. There are 3 difficulties: easy, normal, and brave. While the game as a whole is a love letter to old school RPGs, it's unfortunately to a fault. Grinding is pervasive on both the normal and brave difficulties, and easy is so trivial that there's really no perfect difficulty curve for enjoying BD2 in a way that's reasonable. Bravely 2's combat is very much the same system you've come to know from the previous games, and that's by no means a bad thing. You can suspend or spend BP points to use many turns at once, or hold on to them for future turns. New classes like the Blitzer and Savage add new life into this system, with the Blitzer gaining more defense the lower his BP is, and the Savage being able to brave or default up to 5 times in one turn. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it's still a very good time. If you didn't like the first Bravely Default, this one isn't going to change your mind. While it's largely similar, it's very unfaltering in what it sets out to do. Where it actually does falter though is the art style. While it did grow on me over time, and I certainly don't dislike it as much as when I first saw the initial trailer, Bravely Default's visuals have lost some of their charm and expression on the transition from 3DS to Switch. Characters seem a little bit more plastic, and the environments have also taken a bit of a nosedive, since they don't take advantage of 2D concept art as much as the 3DS's screen did. What hasn't taken a nosedive, because it's practically just as good or bad as it's been across each game so far, is the story. BD2 uses RPG tropes so liberally, you'd think they were trying to win a game of generic storytelling bingo. There's amnesia, crystals, the power of friendship. If you can think of it, it's probably here. But it wears its tropes on its sleeve, and isn't afraid to show you it knows exactly what it is. The cast is entirely new, much like how Final Fantasy has a completely new set of characters but with recurring themes in each game. The omission of Edea is unfortunate, and you could argue that her not being included is a detriment to any video game. The fact that BD2 is so worth your time still, even with the story being as monotonous and tired as it is, just speaks to how amazing its base mechanic is. The aforementioned new classes add some much needed life into the series, and having all of my heroes stack 4 turns to finish off a group of monsters was crazy fun. Bravely Default 2 is one of the greatest RPGs in recent memory. For all other Bravely Default news, keep it here at Boss Store.